Welcome back. Well, we are here for a combination summary of the iris birth order cycles and seasons. And the majority of this presentation is really more about therapies or the potential for how to help those who need help. And I'm going to focus on three primary areas. But not as thoroughly as I would for those who have no experience at all. This group of natural health practitioners, you're probably already pretty good, if not already an expert at nutrition, supplements, herbal medicine, and so on. So I'm not going to cover all of the therapies I've used. I'm going to cover just a few things that I personally consider to be important. But we're going to cover some of the aspects of the body and the functions of nutrition and what I recommend on a basic level. Then we're going to cover a little bit of what I call the vibrational medicines, which have for me to do with the subtle body field, the aura or the spirit body of the individual. I'll explain the difference and then how to be able to use those as well. But mostly I'm going to focus on the importance of experimenting with a program I'm offering, which is how to basically unify the experiences that are common in the irises that are also common in other places in nature. What I've learned about the iris is that there's long-term constitutional types. We have the emotional type and its opposite, the mental type. These two are consistently in relationships with each other. They're in relationship with each other because they have polarity opposites. So the dilating feeling principle of the flower type is opposite the constricting principle of the jewel or mental type. These are opposites. There is another quality in this, besides just emotion and mind. There is what's called antipathy or sympathy. The flower is a sympathetic type. They have a tendency to go toward people or situations or into the world. The mental type has a tendency to more often draw back into the mind and go alone. These are opposites. Now, later on, I'll explain how these opposites, they produce the reason why people come together, and I'll explain these opposites relative to the mother's side of the family, and I'm going to suggest a therapeutic sequence using a flow of these two. I'll explain what that means. But the other two, the shaker and the stream, they're also polar opposites, but they're combined of these two. They're combined with the constrictive and the dilating forces together to produce a form of groundedness. The groundedness gives them a closer relationship to the body and oftentimes even their etheric body, but they like safety and security, and they like consolidation. They like things together, and they prefer things without change. They like things held together with tradition and otherwise. They're usually in a relationship with an opposite, the shaker pattern. The shaker takes risk, likes changes, does things in a dynamic way. They are mobilizers. The stream is a kinesthetic grounding function. And you'll know these when you see them and you hear them. Now, the reality is everybody has all four of these. You're not only one. You are definitely kinesthetic, but to what degree? You're definitely mental, but to what degree? Same as shaker, same as flower. These four. Now, these four, they make up the overall foundation of the constitution of the iris. And you can't rely on the constitution of the iris in a way to look in somebody's eyes and say, I'm going to prescribe the herbs that you need today. Because the iris doesn't change, at least not like that. Now, if you look at the iris and you prescribe herbs that match the constitution and some of the positions of the iris, then you're probably going to be giving the person a prescribed form of nutrition, protein, supplements, vitamins, and minerals. You're going to give them supplements to match you're probably doing a service just to balance their body chemistry, even though their constitution doesn't change. That's the basic level. But don't think that just because you're doing the right nutritional balance, that you're actually producing any form of cure. For me, a cure is something that changes the soul. A healing is something that balances a polarity. So if you want to balance a polarity of a symptom in a body, just the right molecules will balance symptoms in the body. Just the right supplements, the right nutrition. This will balance the body from symptoms, but it won't stop the original reason why the symptoms arrive. The symptoms will just keep coming until you address the subtle field or the spirit body, which is where the vibrational medicines are primarily effective. But even a vibrational medicine applied correctly to change emotional symptoms and physical symptoms, like a well-prescribed homeopathy or the perfect use of acupuncture, they will change the physiology and change symptoms in a longer term than just nutrition. But don't think just because you are making a change using vibrational medicines, you're engaged in a cure. You're engaged in a healing and a service, but it's not a cure. The cure only comes on a soul level when that person is personally involved and personally responsible for the origin and expression of the unresolved feelings that they have inside of them. Cure is personal responsibility on a soul level. That's the cure. Everything else is service. By the way, do it, and I recommend that you do it. Now, there are things on the physical level that I will share with you, which you already know. There's a certain amount of physical activity that I think is ideal for anyone, regardless of their age. Like, for example, you need some physical activity. And for myself, I like 30 minutes of walking. I think walking is probably the easiest universal exercise that facilitates the mobilization of energy in the body, be it biochemical, be it electromagnetic, or even soul level energy. You can move things by walking. Other things are also useful. Any form of Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, those things, anything in the body. The other thing I'm liking more recently is that my life in front of the computer is sedentary. So I like to go do 5 minutes, a simple 5 minutes of the mini trampoline, just jumping up and down, 5 minutes, moving the energy, come back. Exercise, a little bit of movement, some posture shifting, some stretching. These, for me, equilibrate the physical body consistently. They won't make symptoms go away unless the specific posture or the specific activity exactly matches something that the person needs to moderate their symptoms. Physical body activity every day. True, there are days I miss it. And missing a certain time won't hurt you. Missing once or twice won't hurt you. But missing it 10 times in a month, yeah, it starts to accumulate. You start to miss walking or exercise for 2 or 3 months, your overall health is declining. Now, enough said about physical activity, because most of you are very aware of this. This is taught about and preached about by many different angles. But I'm also interested in the arrival of new forms of supplements. I've done research with someone's work called, his name is David Sinclair. His book is called Lifespan, and it's about the research of adding in specific molecules, most of them natural in some form or another, to now activate what's called sirtuins, which is simply a messaging system to turn on the genes of the body. So there are supplements I recommend that you research and at least consider taking. The ones I take on a regular basis: NMN, mononucleotide niacinamide mononucleotide. Phew. That's what NMN is, and I take it every day. I take 1,000 milligrams at least once, sometimes twice a day. I'm also taking resveratrol. I'm also taking the synthetic form of metformin. I do 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of that a day. And those 3 or 4 supplements, because there's a couple of other ones he recommends, they have a long-term effect to activate the epigenetic process to activate renewal or regeneration of the body. So those are the ones I'm most interested in now. I've been experimenting with those. Well, the metformin for about 4 years, some of the other supplements for a year, some of them a little less, but I really recommend those for the physical body. Remember, that's just the physical body, and it does help to equilibrate the physical system. Now, there's one other that I've been experimenting with for only about 3 months, and I find its effect to be very useful, and that's the sauna. I do a 30-minute sauna, full spectrum sauna, 5 times a week, something like that. And it really does change my skin, my feeling of that, and I'm really enjoying it. It's been quite useful. I feel its effects. And if you look at the research on saunas from Finland is that the use of a sauna, even 20 minutes, 5 times a week, reduces all-cause mortality by 40%. So if you combine the benefits, like even the metformin reduces all-cause mortality by 30%. If you combine these together, you're giving the physical body the maximum opportunity to equilibrate and to circulate. If you add in the exercises and that's moving, I'm thinking you're giving yourself the optimum ability to be able to change. But I'm suggesting while you're mobilizing all of that, mobilize these 4 as well. Now, these 4, by the way, they correspond to ascending and descending forces in the body. These same ascending and descending forces and these 4 correspond also to the birth order. And you're going to find out that the 6 boys and 6 girls, they have different functions inside the body. So I know it's odd to say that there are 12 brothers and sisters inside of you. Yes, it's a metaphor, but we're talking about glands, organs, body systems, and we're talking about meridian functions and how to be able to mobilize this energy. Mobilize this energy vibrationally with whatever vibrational method that you like the most, flower essence, homeopathy, or some of the ones that my friends use. But there's also another part of how to activate the spirit body. Now, one of the primary instruments of activating the spirit body is going to be your use of creative imagination. There is a specific function of creative imagination that links the soul function through the spirit body into the physical body. Soul, mind, body. So on a mind level, the effective use of visualization is actually an instrument to help you integrate the physical body, but also eventually to resolve or experience the unresolved emotions in the family. The flower and the jewel, they come together for reasons because they trigger each other. They come together like all of us do with a form of Emotional attraction, and we really like this feeling of emotional attraction. This is the romantic attraction that most of us have gone through, if not many times, gone through this emotional attraction function of opposites. But it corresponds to what they actually contain. So the jewel contains exactly what the flower needs to feel. And the flower contains exactly what the jewel needs to feel. So what are these things we need to feel, and how does this relate to the use of creative imagination? Yes, you can use creative imagination if you're a jewel just to imagine yourself being a flower. You can be a flower and imagine yourself being a jewel. You can use imagination to feel your opposite. If you intentionally integrate your opposite, you're on the way to circulating your own energy rather than needing somebody to come by and move you. To get somebody to come by and move you, that's called law of attraction. Law of attraction is essentially something that arrives that mobilizes your emotional resistance, and you usually end up with a hurt feeling or an anger or trouble, or you do something evasive or addictive. So this is why these two come together, and the same is true for all of them. And I'll show you an image in just a minute or two where you have all 12 of these coming together all the time. So how does this relate to imagination? Well, the use of imagination is a specific bridge between the soul phenomena and your capacity to feel integrated into the world. I know that sounds like a lot, but the ability for a childlike imagination, if you've ever watched a small child play by themselves using their imagination, it's about as close as you're going to get to the experience of soul occupying the feeling mechanism. Now, how to do this is what I'm going to suggest is a readily easy to do form of practice. So I'm going to take you to what this practice looks like, how to use emotional imagination. Now, you'd have to use your imagination in a completely different way if you were to consider that these 4 different constitutions actually matched different seasons of the year. There is a stage of the year where you go into antithepy. Antithepy is typically a stage of isolation. We're more likely to go into an isolated state in the autumn and the winter. And we're more often to go into a sympathetic state when we go into spring and summer. So these two are opposites. This has a tendency to respond well to the summer. This one responds better to the experiences of the winter. These are opposites. These 4 different constitutions also correspond to 4 seasons of the year. And yes, they're ascending day length, ascending in the winter, ascending in the spring, descending in the summer, descending in the autumn. Yes, cycles and seasons correspond to the iris and the birth order and to your ability to be able to add in therapeutic mobility to anyone. So you can use this, and I'm going to show you why I use it and how to use it. Yes, mine is a little bit more detailed than you might be familiar with, but let me just go back and show you a sequence of irises. Let me show you 12 for a second. Take a look at this for a moment. This is not exact, but these are 12 different iris types linked in an order. Yes, there is an iris type for each hour of the day, and there's an iris type for each 2-hour segment of the day. So yes, there's different rotational experiences that you're going through all day long. And what's happening in this process is that these different parts of you are accessing different parts of your family tree. So you'll have a different part of your family tree that you access at sunrise. You'll have a different feeling at sunset or bedtime. These are 12 different constitutional vibrations or experiences, body types, soul attributes. This is a whole series of things. So I'm suggesting to you that there is a sequence of hours in the day that are connected. And when you're aware of this connection and you're receptive to the experience of what comes to you, you can create a better response. For example, if you're passing through a particular time of the day, say it's 2 to 4 in the afternoon, and you notice that you have a triggered reaction, somebody calls you, somebody comes to the door, you watched a movie or whatever it is, you read a book, you had a triggered reaction. What do you do with that triggered reaction? I'm suggesting that you consider at least the possibility that 100% of all of the emotional reactions that are coming to you, no matter how they got there, are directly related to the magnet of you. I mean, you are the one creating the emotional attraction to an event, whether you know it or not. No one creates the feelings inside of you but you. People will come to trigger you, yes, all day long, triggered. You walk outside, you're triggered. Whether you know it or not, all day long, there's a series of things happening to you. Some of them are systemic and in the background. Stress, tiredness, confusion, sadness. Sometimes these are in the background. Other times they come to the surface. And they come to the surface and they're related to a process about how your genetic memory, not only of your own genetic memory from your immediate biological family, you have a genetic memory that goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. You have a genetic memory we know of that goes back at least 180,000 years. That's called your mitochondrial epigenetic memory that runs the engine of your metabolism in your body. So you'll have moments when these issues, they come to you at different times of the day, different seasons of the year. You'll have different forms of attraction. So what do you do when something comes? Well, what most people do is either react to it or evade it or medicate it. People have a way of not dealing with it or projecting toward it or medicating it with an activity. They shift something, they eat something, they go somewhere, they do something. Everybody does this all the time. There are no exceptions. We're all involved in processing the triggers of emotional reactions. So what do you do? I'm suggesting that you consider one thing. 100% of everything that's coming to you, no matter how small or large. It could be the cat comes by and scratches you, or the mailman comes to deliver bad news. You turn the television on and the pandemic is now, the COVID is killing more people in the world and you're triggered. You read a book about the aliens and you're triggered. Whatever it is, you're continuously triggered all day long. Now, 99% of these triggers, at least 99%, are already embedded inside of you. So the only way that you attract something is because you have something that you need to feel. I know that's pretty wild. 100%. Now, I said 99 because you can create things to come to you that are not necessarily genetic. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes, because you can practice creating things that are not housed in your gene code. Meaning you can practice feelings using your creative imagination. You can practice things. I'm going to suggest that you consider learning how to feel each 2-hour segment of the day. And I'm going to provide you with a chart that will describe not only what the feeling would be on a universal level, meaning, for example, there is a universal quality to what sunrise feels like. When you're willing to endure it, there is an underlying feeling about how the rising of the sun has a different feeling than the setting of the sun. So the rising of that feeling has a universal effect on people. Now, the rising of that feeling, by the way, every one of these is a different ancestral location in your DNA. Yes, I'm saying it's the same as you being in the driver's seat of a car with 12 relatives in the back seat, all of them telling you to stop, go, do this. No, I'm afraid. No, do that. No, don't eat this. Now, wait, I almost mean this literally, that you're constantly influenced by ancestral circuitry flowing through your meridians, your body, and your blood, producing impulses, triggers, and reactions. Until you accept the responsibility to change them, improve them, understand them, find them, discover them, they'll just repeat themselves until you're dead. Sorry, that's how it is. You're filled with ancestral memory. Scientifically now, this has been proven for years to emotional patterns in the iris or the family tree or the genetics. It was no, radically not. Now, the epigenetic science recognizes that the methylation of memory is occurring all the time. The genome, no, that doesn't change all the time. What's changing all the time is the epigenetic genome. The changing of that, by the way, they can measure over a matter of days. If you're engaged in a particular exercise, they can measure it. There's scientific evidence that people can change their biological age by engaging in primarily biochemical exercises. I'm suggesting that you can do it vibrationally. I'm also suggesting you can do it with imagination. Yes, the epigenetic memory is volatile. It will change. I'm going to offer to you an instrument based on what I've seen over these last 40 years, and I really do believe it's the best thing I've ever done. So if you'll consider what it looks like, I'll take you through the process. All I'm going to do is take you through each one of these different locations in your family tree. Yes, you have 6 grandparents from your father's family, 6 grandparents from your mother's family, and then you have your mother and your father. Yes, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're going to be dealing with your mother and your father for the rest of your life. You'd like to feel that you moved away 1,000 miles and you're no longer near your mother or your father, but the influence is still there. So I'm going to suggest to you that the acknowledgement of it and the utilization of these other forms of activity will help you move through that influence. Number one, you're not your mother. You're not your father. You're not your ancestors. Sorry, you're not the reincarnation of one of your great ancestors. And that's just my opinion. You have the capacity. You're not a jewel. You're not a flower. You're not a shaker. You're not a stream. These are all instruments of your capacity. These are things that you can learn to do, learn to feel. These are the means by which you can fly. But you have to be willing to at least occupy them. So I'm going to show you why I use these and give you something to start with, to experiment with. Number one, accept 100% of everything that's coming at you. Somebody scratches your car, my suggestion would be the first word that comes out of your mouth, thank you. With this trigger, you now have the opportunity to feel your emotional reaction And those emotions will now start to come to the surface. Why is that important? When a triggered emotion is released from one of these locations, it's either going to be processed by you or it's going to return to that location and increase. I'm suggesting that all of the triggers that come to you, you can choose to process them. Some of them will take you months to process, and then you won't be done. Some of them you can be through with in a matter of hours. Some of these memories, the vast majority of important ones, were put there without your will. The ancestral memories that came to you collectively, and even the ones that came to you in collective consciousness, were put there without your will. They're actually the easiest ones to remove. The hardest ones to remove are the ones you put there yourself by utilizing your own belief systems, your own projections, your own habitual habits and addictions that you put there. Your father and mother know they have a limited ability to affect you up until the age of 7 or 8. But they're not intended to continually affect you, and you're not obligated to respond to how they continue to trigger you. That's just an opinion. So I want to take you through the sequence, and we're going to start this sequence in a particular location. Let me pull up another graphic. Consider this. What I'm saying is that this graphic also corresponds to all iris structures. The RAYID system uses primarily 2. It uses jewel, flower. Flower being the experience of the sympathetic function, jewel being the antipathy function. This is more isolating. This is more integrating and consolidating. Socially expressive, socially quieter. Jewel is more cool. Flower, typically more hot. Now, these are the 4 seasons of the year: autumn, winter, spring, summer. But these also correspond to the hours of the day. Now, this is all of the hours of the night from sunset all the way over to sunrise. This is sunrise, midday, and this is the end of the day, just before sunset. These are all 12 different meridians, glands, organs, body systems, colors, obviously. This is a lot of information in one graphic. These are individual 2-hour sections. This is also how the epigenetic sequencing comes to bring you your law of attraction at a specific time. No, I don't believe in accidents or a coincidence. Things come to you according to a map. Now, the cool thing about the map is a nature-oriented reflection of divine perfection, meaning cycles and seasons around us, the turning of the planet and the moon and the sun, the solar system, the galaxies. These are all unified in one divine perfection. So the willingness to relate to a particular season as part of what I might feel. There is something to be felt in the winter, the autumn, the winter, the spring, and the summer that's very different. We know that we have different hormonal physical processes, as this is the equinox, by the way. This is the spring equinox that now gives us a summer of abundance in plants and food and social contact. These are lessons in nature displayed inside of glands, organs, and body systems. I'm also saying that this corresponds to potentially one of the greatest therapies that we can voluntarily incorporate. That therapy would be the intentional desire to want to use my own choice to be in rhythmic harmony of the fluid sequence of every hour, every day, every month, every season, the sincere desire to want to be in harmony with the world around us. You might say, but the world around us is a cold, cruel, violent place. And I would agree with you. The social world around us and the things that we have happening to us, be it COVID or something else, cruelty and war and violence, all of that stuff around us is there. But 100% of what you see coming to you is directly related to a pattern yet unresolved inside of you. I'm saying we all individually and collectively created COVID. We all individually and collectively create the circumstances on earth. Individually or collectively, whether it's your neighborhood, it's your country, it's your culture, your religion, it's being a human, we're all involved in the process. So is it possible that I can engage in producing a degree of harmony within myself that will have an effect on my family tree? Come on. Are you willing to consider the possibility by just experiencing a sincere desire to want to be in harmony with the divine expression of cycles and seasons might have an effect on your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and society itself? This is what I'm suggesting. Now, I know this is pretty far out there for most of you, but I'm saying that the sincere desire to practice the first step. The first step, by the way, is a feeling that happens at sunset. In some cultures, Jewish, Muslim, the year begins in the autumn and the day begins at sundown. I have no allegiance to those systems. I didn't arrive at this through them. I've arrived at this myself after many years of looking at things. I've changed so many times, I might even change again. The day begins at sunset, where the peace of the evening is linked to, between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m., it's linked to the next sequence, which is the transition from the material world and the mental world into the night or the spirit world. We're making a transition. Now, I'm urging you that if you really want to have the maximum opportunity to be able to regenerate your body and your mind, that you recognize that there are rhythms about why it's important to begin to go to sleep before 10 o'clock at night. I know it's harder if you're in the spring season or you're in the spring season of being a teenager and your hormones are driving you wild like the springtime does. I know it's harder to find the harmony at between 8 and 10 p.m. is the transition that takes you into change. Each hour of the night has a precise reason. And if you're willing to consider it, that 2 hours before sunrise is one of the most creative times of the day that's available to you, because that 2 hours before sunrise is the opportunity for you to become authentically you. Pretty important. And most of you will find out, whether you like it or not, that you'll wake up between 2 and 4 in the morning consistently. 2 and 4 in the morning is all about social dynamics. It equilibrates the inner vibrational functions of the solar plexus, the liver, the pancreas function. And guess what this is really about between 3 and 5 in the morning? It's about social dynamics. So in this time period, we're actually preparing ourselves to receive what's going to come the rest of the day. So rather than jumping out of bed and finding another supplement that you might take to put you back to sleep, my suggestion would be still. Feel that time period and remember what it is that you're really aspiring to do for the rest of the day. Because what you choose to do during this time period from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., but particularly from 2 a.m. until that sunrise pattern right at the sunrise moment, is what you set in motion. Now, what you set in motion can be highly productive, and it cycles back around again to sunset. Sunset is the opportunity to clean, to release, to bathe, to reorient. Now, I'm suggesting that it's possible to be able to do this. Now, what you don't see in here are the hours. I'd like to at least give you several different versions. I'll give you a chart that you can have that'll take you through the seasons and the hours. Let me show you another graphic. Let's see. Now, if I just get to have my, let's see, what was my Alzheimer's test? Oh, there it is. How about that? I remembered. Now, I'm going to move aside. Let's see. I'll just start again. Here is another graphic. And on this graphic are all the hours of the day, flowing in a sequence, a flowing continuum of time. The outer world has an offer to help us learn rhythm, timing, harmony inside of ourselves as reflected back to us. Now, this bottom one, it has all the hours. You can see it on the graphic. You can photograph this. I'll move out of your way. This shows you all the patterns. By the way, these are all the birth order positions, glands, organs, and body systems. And this is a sequence of how time moves. Now, the graphic in the back is where I suggest you start with every day or every hour. What I mean by that is this time period of the very beginning of this is the sunset feeling, and the feeling that we have universally around sunset is the peace of the evening. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that the moment that you desire to want to have an orientation to your own self, your own soul, higher, bigger, truer, you can call it whatever you want. You can call whatever it is you feel. But the moment you start to want to feel that, the first feeling I suggest that you experiment with is the feeling of peace. And the feeling of peace as it is expressed by the feeling of a lake that has no ripple. Nice. Start everything with peace. Now, I'll give you the most simple and the most useful tool I can. And if you practice just this one part, give yourself a little while, a week, a month, it'll become part of you for natural reasons. All it is whenever you feel like you're processing something, if it's a trigger that comes to you spontaneously, or if it's a long-term feeling, go to the beginning. And the beginning is peace. I suggest that you experiment with, at the very bottom of the heart, later on I'll explain why, because even the heart has a sequence of ascending and descending. And if you start at the bottom or the back of the heart, you have a better opportunity to feel the experience of peace. So if something's coming to you, and it's a trigger, most often we come out of our peace and we meet that with rejection, attack, hurt, pain, anger, rage, evasiveness. We come out of our peace and we meet it. We reject what's coming from us. My suggestion is do your best, go back to your piece, let that move towards you, through you, and out if you want. Later on, you can decide whether you're going to go for the truth of this, find the truth of this trigger. Just give yourself a chance. Even after you've had a difficult moment, you might have had an argument with your partner, or something troubled you with the kids, or in the grocery store, you realize that you were triggered about something. It's a few minutes later, or it's an hour later. Yes, you can go back to the beginning of that event using your own creative imagination. You can come back to a moment and change your response to it. How do you change your response to it? You recognize there may have been maybe a better way for you to handle that. And if you were experimenting with the possibility that 100% of everything that's coming to you is designed to guide you eventually to the experience of feeling the truth about yourself. So if something comes to trigger you, it's designed to guide you to feel a feeling. It's not always easy to know what the feeling is. For example, you might feel triggered and you're angry about something, but you don't really know what you're actually angry about. But you may be angry because you're not getting something you want. You want the other person to not do, or to do something for you exactly the way you want them to do it for you. And you recognize that that's anger, and you recognize that you're now projecting onto them. And you can now take that feeling in that moment, bring it back to the point at the bottom of the heart, and create the feeling that your sincere desire is to know the truth behind the triggered reaction. Because anger is only the beginning of recognizing there's something behind the anger. What are you really angry about? You didn't get something that you wanted. Well, probably you didn't get something to fulfill your addiction. Whether or not you knew it was an emotional addiction or a biochemical addiction, because all addictions are actually the choice to avoid an experience of feeling. If you don't search for the real reason why you're triggered, you won't find the answer. And if you don't find the answer, you're going to stay perpetually in that same trigger for the rest of your life. Not an easy thing to do, but I'm suggesting that by the sincere desire to want to take that trigger at the very beginning, even an hour later. Now, if you have a difficult argument with your mate, you can go up to 4 days to go back to it. Now, why would you want to go back to it? Because at some level, you want to find the feeling and the truth about why this keeps happening. It keeps happening because it's embedded somewhere in your genetic memory, and now your social memory, because you're engaged in perpetuating it, is better to find the source of it. Now, this is just to get started. Step number 1, just feel the feeling. Now, if you get really brave, you can do that at different times of the day. You might want to notice time of the day it is that you typically feel frustrated or addictive, biochemically or otherwise. You might notice. So what do? Go back to the beginning. The sincere desire to want to feel the truth about this feeling. And every other feeling like this I've ever denied. Now, the opportunity to be able to do this is very personal. Now, I'm suggesting a strange thing, that if you were to practice this feeling and link that feeling to every 2 hours, after a period of time, it becomes picked up as a long-term memory. It takes about 21 days for a memory to begin to actually form, a new one, a positive one. Why 21? Well, it takes 21 days for the sun to make one rotation. That's the basic reason why. So why just 21? No, 21 gets something started. A month gets something started, but 3 cycles of something creates a longer memory. So 3 cycles of months, 3 months is a season. So if you practice this one feeling, the sincere desire to want to feel more about who I am, I sincerely want to know the feeling about it, and you practice it at different times of the day. The sincere desire to feel more of the truth about who I am, and you just start that, and you did that for 3 months, it's going to become a long-term pattern where the sincere desire to feel the peace of who I actually am. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a caveat on this, because the moment you make a sincere desire to want to feel the truth about who and what you are, you're going to set a cascade, like a confetti, of law of attraction events are going to start arriving. You're going to be triggered in multiple different directions all the time. Why would you want to do that? Because you took a large event that was going to come around and cause a disease or a stroke or a heart attack. You took a large event and you shattered it into little pieces, and it gives you the opportunity to process it more fluidly. Did you get that? The sincere desire to want to grow and feel who you are automatically starts within minutes, circulating the feelings that you need to feel next. The feelings that you need to feel next are different from the ones I need to feel or someone else. So you're going to get exactly the feelings that you need to feel next. If you need to feel that in the afternoon, if you need to feel that in the morning, those feelings are going to arrive. Some of these feelings, they're going to come and they're going to land. And you go, wait, I don't like this feeling of tiredness I feel today. I want the sincere desire to know the truth about how to feel myself and to grow. And what comes is tiredness. And that is the feeling you need to feel now. Or maybe it's confusion or doubt. Go ahead and feel that. If it's anxiety, go ahead and feel that. Now, I'm assuming your biochemical world, you've equilibrated. You're willing to use the instruments that are available to you. But I'm suggesting that if you practice the fluid feeling of a sincere desire to want to grow, and you do that for a season of the year, it's deeper. If you do that through 2 seasons, it's deeper. If you do 3 seasons, it's very deeply embodied, and it will continue now to flow for you. So if you have a sincere desire to want to grow, and you do that for 9 months, now that circulation is going to be automatic and linked into the cycles and seasons of the year. So you might want to measure, why are you doing this? What is your intention? What is the outcome you want? Where is it going? I'm suggesting you might consider that you do have a soul, and of course most of you do believe that. You can apply whatever faith or religion that moves you the most, you can do that. I'm suggesting that the harmony through cycles and seasons will increase your ability to be in the world. Now, also will tell you honestly, it will increase your feeling content. When it increases your feeling content, it's going to go through sequences of increase. What do I mean by that? I mean, most of you would consider that you have some degree of empathy, or you wouldn't be listening to something like this. You have empathy, but the magnitudes of empathy that are available to you are far beyond what you might consider. I did not know the levels of empathy that are available inside myself until I started processing it. And one of the first things that opens up is an increase of your ability to feel. Initially, that initial increase is called empathy, which is the ability to feel the feelings of others. You think, oh yeah, that's outside. Yeah, I feel the feelings of others. No, if you apply empathy in the correct way, you start to apply it on the bottom of your heart, and you can begin the experience of feeling other people's feelings inside you. Whose? Your mother's, your father's, your grandparents. Wouldn't it be nice to have an acquired instrument where you can use your empathy to discern somebody else's feelings inside you? Because otherwise, if you're not willing to discern those feelings inside yourself, you end up processing and reprocessing your great-grandfather's feelings about something, or your great-grandmother's unresolved tragedy, loss of a child, pain, divorce, money, sex. I'm saying the actual use of empathy is to feel the feelings of your family tree inside you. So you can decide to let something move, or you could decide that, no, this one belongs to you. And that skill set is a natural continuation of the increase of empathy and discernment that give you the ability to be able to decide, do I want to receive this or not? Can I accept this but not receive it? You might acknowledge that your great-grandfather was an alcoholic, but that doesn't mean you must become an alcoholic. But that pattern of alcoholism might also be influencing your ability to relate well to men or to a specific location in your family tree. So sometimes it's important to recognize that you have been imprinted by the ancestors in your family tree, and it's just nice to be able to appreciate who you are. For example, let me give you a little bit of a test. On a scale from 1 to 100, how much do you know and love your mother's mother's mother? Your great-grandmother, mother's mother's mother. You may or may not have known her socially. You may or may not know anything about her. You may have her name, or you may have what country she was from. But she is part of an instrumentality of your ability to be able to change. Mother's mother's mother controls the left side of the heart, the spleen, the ability to be able to eliminate. There are so many things that she is responsible for guiding for you. So it's not like you want to disavow her existence, because your mother's mother's mother is a chakra position inside you. It's a series of instruments where you can actually learn to increase your empathy for her. Now, your empathy later on might have compassion, where it helps her do something, or you might just recognize that your increase of the ability to feel her gives you the ability to be able to allow, open, receive, wash, clean. That same position, by the way, mother's mother's mother, corresponds to 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and corresponds with the ability to make a transition from the material world to the spirit world. It is the point of transition. It's the place of metamorphosis. It's also what's called sometimes the dark night of the soul, or the void. It's where we go when we leave the physical body without really realizing we're going into the spirit world. Is she important? Yes, she's very, very important. So whatever your feeling is about her, she has a whole series of wonderful gifts. The ability to receive love, the ability to change, the ability to open. Well, certain skills like invisibility and transparency, the ability to be able to open things, open gates. She has the ability later on to open one of the other ones. She can help you transform the other side of your family. This is one location, mother's mother's mother. What I'm saying is all 12 of the grandparents have equally important functions that can be utilized and learned. Now, I know this is an unusual way to see the iris, but that's how I see the iris. These are 12 different iris constitutions. This is rhythmic feelings. Some of them are kinesthetic, some of them are shaker, some are jewel, some are flower, some are cold, some are hot, some are in transition. But I'm also saying this is a reflection of an element in nature, that cycles and seasons is an available gift for us to be able to utilize to bring ourselves into greater degree of harmony. So I'll invite you to come along on a program. I'm doing this program called With Peace for 3 years, and we will guide you through the individual steps, give you some suggestions about how to do each one, and it's available for you to use with your clients if you should choose to do so. But just the very beginning, 100% responsibility for all feelings and the willingness to receive these things in gratitude. Oh, by the way, gratitude is mother's mother's mother. The ability to receive. Thank you, I received it. Thank you for helping me to change my life and my heart. Thank you. To be able to take a feeling and say, wow, thank you for this difficult, troubling moment when I'm really angry at you, because I know eventually it's going to help me discover something true about myself. Anybody who loves you is going to trigger you. So consider how this works and consider the possibility. I'm going to thank those of you who've been along for this journey, that have been here since the beginning of the 3 different previous talks I've given. I hope you have learned something about the iris and the birth order, the family tree, and now the cycles and seasons, but how to use this cycles and seasons as a therapeutic model, but it's also a way of looking at the world, a way of looking at yourself. This work for me has been a treasure, and this treasure is something I feel like I want to give as freely as possible. If you have questions, you want an explanation of something, you can come over to the RAYID International Facebook and you can post a question and myself or somebody else will answer it, or you can message me privately. And if the question is useful for many other people as well, I'll make a recording about it. So feel free to contact me if you have questions or how to apply something better. This is only the beginning, by the way. We have more explanations about how to do this. All of this information is available for you to use freely. All of the graphics that you've seen, they're available for you to be able to use. If you want to use them for a talk or an explanation to clients, you can do that. The charts and things will be available on the RAYID International Facebook. You look under files and there are charts. There's a whole series of videos also available there if you want to look for more information. But regardless of that, thank you for the opportunity to be part of your life, and thank you for taking the time to share my life with you. Talk to you again one day.